So, hey everybody, I'm Gabby at LifeSongs from the afternoon show. Getting to sit here with Matt Maher. So excited for us to get to know him just a bit better. So, Matt, I've been listening to your song about waiting, this new song that just came out. I feel like as believers, waiting is a topic that is kind of uncomfortable. Do you have anything to share kind of about the season that song came out of?
Yeah, I would say, I'm a husband and dad. I've been married 15 years this year, and I have three kids. And so a lot of ideas like this are sort of, happening on the way is, I guess, is the best way to say it, because like when you're a parent, you really don't get much of a break.
Yeah.
So being a dad and being a songwriter, I've a lot of it is just leaning into God, saying, "Okay, listen, you got to talk to me on the way here." I'd been in a season where, like everyone, I think some of it's like our relationship with these things called cell phones and smartphones and social media has become pretty invasive increasingly, and it gets hard because it ultimately, as good as it can be a really big distraction. It can distract us from praying. It can distract us from our relationships. It can distract us from whatever tasks we're actually trying to do in the present moment in the real world. And so we went to New York a year ago for a couple of days to go see a musical and to just kind of be a family and see the city, eat food. You can walk around, you can walk 20,000 steps in a day and go to a museum and like eat some really great food. So it's kind of a fun combination. And we were walking to a musical, and I remember I was just holding my daughter's hand and just being in the moment and grateful for the moment, and then looking up and seeing a billboard, and it was this white billboard, and it just said, "It can wait."
Mm, wow.
And it's one of those things where I say songs for a lot of songwriters, particularly, I think Christian music and worship music, but all songwriting is a form of catching revelation.
Hmm.
You're revealing something about you and what you've been through, your life experiences, your circumstances, and it's just the combination of the words and the music itself become a way in which you're speaking of something that truly is transcendent, like a deeper truth. And so before the song, I just had the phrase of that, of "it can wait," and it sort of became more of a personal prayer, uh, and a reflection when I showed the idea to two producer friends, and just sort of talking about, you know, just I will wait and let the Lord renew my strength, which is kind of comes out of the book of Isaiah, chapter 40. And it says, "Those who wait upon the Lord, he'll renew their strength. They'll run and not grow weary, walk and not grow faint. They'll rise up on wings like eagles," which is kind of what became the bridge of the song. And then the verses of it really just started being more of a reflection on, I think, what a lot of things that people are struggling with right now: fear, anxiety, our imaginations being hijacked, creating false narratives about ourselves and the world around us, letting our shame, it says, "I'm running into walls that don't exist at all." It's
Yeah.
just, a lot of that stuff that people just wrestle with in the day to day now. And, um, and I just think that the gospel and the scriptures have so much to say, that like those experiences are part of the human experience. People have been experiencing these things for millennia,
Hmm.
and that's why, in some ways, God in his goodness gave us his word so that we can be reminded of that and also be encouraged and have access to, that throne of grace, as Paul says in scripture, that we can run to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I was actually, me and my husband have been in a little bit of a hard season ministry wise.
Hmm.
And my coworkers, because my husband's a pastor here in the area, and that I was a pastor's kid, so there's just a lot there. And my coworkers were trying to encourage me to have this conversation with you. And I just kind of was in a season where I was like, I don't know if I want to take anything else on at work, anxiety wise. And my coworkers sent me that song and they were like, you really need to like listen, not just listen, but like you need to hear this.
Wow.
And it was really encouraging. And so I just want to thank you. I always appreciate when artists, because I just feel like there's something really special about music and about worship, softens the heart, and it really just gives us that space away from all those interruptions that you just spoke about. So I just want to say genuinely thank you so much for the authenticity that you show in your songwriting and the obedience that you display to the Lord in
You're
that.
you are so welcome. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. And you did talk a little bit about like the interruptions and the struggle and the battling with, prioritizing. And I assume that's very hard when you're on the road, when you're songwriting, when you also have a family. There's so many things. My husband and I were just talking at church last night with our congregation about just how hard it is in culture to prioritize and to take space away from your phone that's constantly there, battling for your attention. So, can you give us some insight on what it looks to be intentional with rest?
I mean, what I would say is in my life, I'm realizing there are non-negotiables.
Hmm.
And spending time with the Lord every morning, just reading scripture and giving a bit of space, even if it's 5, 10 minutes in the morning,
Yeah.
just to start, is something that anybody can consistently do. And inviting God into the details of your day is very, very important. I think as you grow in your life and as the circumstances of your life change, your discernment has to change. So, like, I'm a songwriter right now, and I actually haven't had a ton of time to work on songs in my studio. It's like where I'm sitting right now. I've been mostly with my family, spending time with my kids. But what I've been learning to do is to say, you know what, God, you're the source of inspiration. And you know that, like Paul was a tent maker. So I always say, like, my songs are my tents in a way.
I love that.
And traveling and playing music is the way that I'm providing for my family. But it's like I also know that you would never want me to lay down my family on any altar in the name of productivity or in the name of success or in the name of anything else. So I'm just learning to kind of surrender and trust. And what think what, hopefully time in life gives you a bit of wisdom enough to look back and realize that the moments in your life when you were most productive, you worried the least about the way in which you're able to provide for your family are actually the times when you were focused on that the least, and you were more focused on being present, more focused on being with your family, more focused on being available to God. Um, and then operating from a mindset of abundance and not scarcity. So I think it's the sense of like being in right relationship with God, being in right relationship with those you're most closest to, attending to the responsibilities that that God actually wants you to put first.
Hmm.
And then like as you grow in life, you just learn you have to invest your time differently. I'm 50. We drove 11 hours from Buffalo, where my in-laws live, back to Nashville. And I got back last night at like
My goodness.
7:30. And if this was 10 years ago, I would have ate dinner with my family. I would have hung out with my wife for a little bit, and then I would have came back here to my studio and worked till probably 1 in the morning. And now what I'm learning at this season of life is like, actually, no, I need a better night's rest.
Hmm.
I'm going to set my alarm and get up earlier. So I've sort of transitioned from being a night owl to like hopefully a morning songbird.
I love that.
Yeah, that like
Awesome.
it just kind of happens in life. So like I would say operating from a place of rest, I think is it starts in here and it starts in here. And then I think the physical aspects of like orienting your schedule in a way. Yeah, I mean, I look at Sundays as the day of the week that I'm journeying towards and the start of my week that I'm moving from. And I take that real seriously. So I think it's really important, everyone, you got to have one day. And if you're in full-time ministry, it obviously is not going to be Sunday,
Nope.
but you got to find a day where you can really, truly, you're not what you do.
Hmm.
That's not who you are. And that's really, really, really important. There's a book I've been reading, and it's a great book for anybody, but it's a book called From Strength to Strength by
Okay.
a guy named Dr. Arthur Brooks. And he is a professor at Harvard University who is a devout Christian. He's a fellow Catholic, very vocal about his faith, very open.
Super cool. Yeah.
And he's honestly, I went to a conference last year on human happiness. He said a lot of people graduate from college and they think it's like love things, use people, worship yourself. And he would say that's the problem is it's a bad orientation of things that we're made to do. So you should use things, you should love people, and you should worship God.
I
And
love that distinction.
it's a
Yeah.
very simple formula to happiness,
Hmm.
which I think it's like stuff doesn't make you happy.
Yeah, that's true.
So more of it isn't going to make you happier. Um, I find that I'm happiest in my life when things are rightly ordered, and a lot of that I remember in ministry is kind of having to delegate, but then having to just set things aside and really trust in God that
Hmm.
He's gonna provide in these areas where I need provision.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like when we choose to sacrifice those things that should be lower on our priority list, the Lord is so good to bless us because
Yes.
we've gone, God, I trust you so much that
Hmm.
I'm going to rightly order my life to honor you. And I feel like He operates more than out of abundance in our life. And we reap such a reward that is more than we could have ever earned by operating in this like workaholic mindset, this overproductivity, like kind of that our culture is kind of racing towards the next thing. How in your life, since you've gotten your life rightly ordered and you're really striving to honor the Lord with these things, have you seen the Lord just really? I don't know. Have you just witnessed His work in your life and His reward in your life because you've chosen to prioritize this in a different way?
Yeah. I mean, I think when Paul says things, I urge you to offer up your bodies as a living sacrifice to God, and he talks about your mind being renewed,
Hmm.
that it's not just like metaphysical mumbo jumbo.
Right.
Like we actually think that grace does have a physiological aspect to improving our um emotional and mental well-being. It's a bit of a mystery and we don't fully understand it. As Christians, we're not just a bunch of people who sort of believe that there's this world of science and that exists over there, and then there's this world of faith that exists over there. Like it's much more,
Intertwined.
the lines are much more intertwined. And
Yeah.
so I think there's just a basic thing of like, as human beings, like when we live an ordered life, this song for me, Wait, is a song that's an example of like God showing up and providing in a season where I, even in the midst of struggling, was like, I'm going to make first things first.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't written a song in a while, and I'd been trying, but I had a bunch of half finished songs, and you kind of hit walls,
Hmm.
and so just needed a couple of good friends to come alongside and hold up a mirror for me and kind of help me and realize that. And I would say that it when I am making these like little decisions, I can see the fruits of it in the relationships that I have primarily with my family. Like I'm more patient with my kids. And it's not perfect. It's not doesn't mean like my kids still don't do things that like irritate me. It's just that I have more margin. It feels like within myself, I have more capacity to patiently show grace and long suffering towards those and others around me. I find myself less inwardly focused, which as an artist is
Mhm.
something that I think that it's kind of comes second. It's kind of with comes with the gift in a way, because that's where the music comes from, is you have to kind of like Jesus kind of leads you into your heart. He takes you by the hand and leads you in and shows you stuff that you need to sing about, or you need to, sing your way out of. Yeah, I mean, I just think that overall I become a more patient person. I become a happier person. Feel like I'm operating in the gifts of the spirit and exhibiting the fruits of the spirit. Like
That's
once
good.
like once again, like these aren't just sort of like intangibles. These are very tangible things that our communities and the people that we live and work in um, can exhibit and see around us, and I think some of it's hard because I think part of the problem is that we struggle with, if I see someone who looks like they're having a hard time, I don't know how to talk to them about it, of like, how you doing?
Yeah.
And and I don't know if it's because church culture for a while was so maybe more sort of like morally confrontational versus the idea now that I think people are becoming more and more comfortable sharing the fact that they're not thriving.
Which I love. The authenticity,
Yes,
the realness.
that's real and that's
Yes.
authentic. And
Yes.
and it doesn't mean that like God's not part of your life. It just
Right.
means that okay, there's a couple things here that are just out of alignment or out of order, and we just need to make a few,
Yeah.
God needs to make a few small adjustments,
Mhm.
but it can have a pretty big effect.
That's really cool. Thank you so much. You've talked a lot about just family and how important that this is, these rhythms that you have with your family, just putting the Lord first. What role would you say that worship and that just having a culture of worship in your home plays?
I travel and I literally talk and sing about Jesus.
Yeah.
Kids watching you do that publicly is not the same as around the dinner table, or it's
Hmm.
not the same as when they can't sleep and then it's the middle of the night and that it's kind of when that's what I'm realizing is that's when they want to see it the most, is in all these other areas. And it's like, if I want my kids to have a relationship with God, I'm God made me to be a model for them. So I need to model what, if I want my kids to worship Jesus, I need to model what that looks like. I
Hmm.
can't expect them to just sort of have this incredible relationship with God if I'm not modeling it, or I'm not talking about my own
Hmm.
or demonstrating that. So, yeah, I think prayer is a very, very crucial part. Praying is like breathing, and it's something that we kind of like all can lose sight of the importance of. And so praying with my kids, praying over my kids. Music's obviously a huge thing in our family, so we're always singing songs, and kids now are more and more are writing songs.
That's
And
so
so yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and the ability
cool.
to sing that together and pray that together um is very, very special. And I don't, I very rarely I'm trying to be home almost every Sunday now, because I want my kids to grow up seeing us worshiping God together. That it's like, once again, if I'm trying to impress upon them, this is the most important yes that you could ever make with your life, is a daily yes to Jesus, then I want to be around to demonstrate what that yes looks like, but also that we can say yes together as a family, that we're going to make a decision. Every family is like a domestic church, it's a small church. And
True.
so, as a family together to say, loving God and loving neighbor is our North Star. And, this is what we're doing as a family, and not just one day a week, but all the time.
Right. So encouraging, Matt. Thank you so much. I know that it's so important to have conversations like this, and it's going to be so encouraging to our listeners because the world can often be so discouraging. And so I feel like just seeing families that are trying, and because we're never going to be perfect, but trying
No,
in this
by
broken
no
world.
means.
Yes, yes, but the effort of just like leaning on the Lord and his strength in those waiting periods, and just making it a habit of worship, and including that culture of just having a Sabbath. I'm so encouraged by all of your just answers in this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we really appreciate you, your music, your ministry, and just you sharing your gifts.
Thank you so much.